Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Easter Shore Talk, your podcast for all things self-care movies. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe, click like, and leave a comment below. If you're listening on one of the other podcast platforms, subscribe, follow, and leave a comment or review. It helps us big time. This is episode 80, and I'm Jay Watson.
Hi, I'm Cathy Castle. I like it. We're at 80. We're in the 80s.
We're now in the decade of the 80s.
We think we're at 85. That's such a good number for us.
So Kathy and I are going to talk about something very, very important that's going on. We're what Kathy and I like to describe as we're in a very bad place as a country for overall wellness. So we're going to talk about
We're in a wellness crisis.
why that is, how we've gotten there, some signs, what we can maybe do to kind of not be in that way. But before we get into that, we're going to do a little check-in. So what is going on with the Castle?
Oh, Jay. I don't even know. I feel like we've been so busy. I don't even know what's going on. Yeah. I have nothing.
Camping?
This weekend coming up.
Oh.
This weekend is just kind of, we're sucking in the last days of, warm. Everybody was swimming, thinking, is this the last day? Is this the last day? Yeah, but nothing to report besides the usual. Everybody's just still locking into getting back to September stuff.
Yeah, getting into football season.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, and I'm going to a game. I'm going to a game next Monday.
Who do they play? Oh, Detroit. That's going to be a tough game. Detroit's good.
Well, in all honesty, you know why I'm excited? Because it's a night game and there's going to be flashing lights and it's a blackout and all the purple and I'm going to be like, yay, Ravens. So I didn't even know who they're playing really, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but yeah, whatever.
So
I'm like the cheerleader. I'm there for the cheers.
Yeah. I talked last time about how I had someone run into my car in the parking lot at work and all that. So finally I went yesterday to the body shop to schedule to get it fixed. And as the lady's sitting there, she's taking pictures and we're talking.
That took a while.
And I said, man, I can't wait to be able to just get in this driver's side door. She's like, wait, you've been crawling through the other side? I'm like, yeah. She's like, hold on a minute. So she goes in and gets a guy.
What?
He comes out and he pries it because it was already dented in. So he pried it. Now I can get in my driver's side door.
Listen, I'm going to admit something. I watched you get in there and you're a pro. I couldn't believe it, man. It was just like, it's like you had no legs. Like you just bounced through.
I kind of don't. I'm so short. I don't really have any legs.
Well, it was impressive and seamless. You had mastered it.
Well, because I've been doing it for 2 weeks. So I kind of got used to.
I mean, you were just like in, over.
Yeah.
Like
if I was 6'2", I wouldn't have been able to do it.
If you were Marty.
I'm closer to 5'2", so I can do it.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So yeah, it's scheduled to be repaired on the 29th, but nice. I'm good now because I can actually get in the normal way. I'm tickled to drive again because I can do normal stuff. I get in the right side.
You didn't know how much we took for granted that you get in on the driver's side of your car.
Yeah, that's we're so spoiled.
You've been European for a while. You've been European. Getting on the right side of the car.
Like Dukes of Hazzard, all kind of sort of. They went in the window though. But yeah, I was getting in. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
You should pretend you were from Australia or England and you driving on the right side of the car.
So yeah, finally that's going to be taken care of. So
good. I'm glad.
But yeah, we thought we would talk about. We've had some very unfortunate events here this past week or two in the country, and that got me really thinking about just how much of a, like Cathy says, it's a wellness crisis. And it's funny, Cathy, we hear people talk about, whether it's doctors or personal trainers talk about, like, for example, the obesity rate in this country is so high and it keeps getting higher and higher. And that's a conversation that is pretty readily had all the time by folks. But nobody talks about the lack of overall wellness in this country the mind, the soul, all of it. We talk about the body part of it when we're pretty comfortable as a country talking about that, good or
Well,
bad, but we just don't want to. We don't want to talk about, and we don't want to face up to the fact that our mental health situation is as bad or worse than our the obesity rate, the physical as a country state. So
so
we
I
thought we would talk
feel
about
I
that.
feel like I feel like we could probably argue that this kind of feeling really goes back. I think it goes back to 2019 when Marvel killed off Iron Man. That's my opinion about it. But we could argue that it goes back to pandemic times, right? We've been feeling blah from time to time. Whatever word you want to use, languishing, kind of stuck. What's the word I can't say today? Malaise. Malaise. Am I
Yeah,
saying that right?
just kind of in a fog. Yeah,
Just like something's wrong, something's not right. I can't really pinpoint it. I would say most people that I encounter say that at different times. That sure, we can get happy and grateful and do the things, but then we seem to come back and settle into this, I don't know, kind of phase, right? And I think that then that in itself affects our overall whole holistic wellness, and you and I talked about this earlier. There's that whole wellness wheel, like whatever's going on in the universe, whether it's Mercury in retrograde or some horrible news event or some weather inconvenience, or you have to climb in your driver's side of your car or passenger side of your car. How does that affect us mentally, spiritually, socially, emotional, our emotional health, our mental health, our physical health? How does it affect all those things? And if we don't start talking about these things, then we got a lot of pieces of our pie that are got some bites out of them, and
yeah.
we're not whole, and we're not healthy. We're sick.
So just real quick, we don't take a stance politically one way or another on the podcast. We don't really talk about religion one way or another on the podcast. I just want to mention just real quick, the unfortunate events with Charlie Kirk. Um, you know, I kind of that was kind of the motivation for having this topic tonight for this podcast because the suspected person, um, there was something going on with him in his life that he was that extreme, and yes, the ins and outs of his specific life are probably complex, and there's probably some deep rooted answers that none of us know, but that's kind of the most tragic and most extreme version of what happens when we don't take care of ourselves. When we don't have a strong enough sense of self to be able to get through when things are not going the way we'd like them to go. And you know, to be honest, I think we have all, to a much lesser degree, have done some smaller things. Obviously, made choices in our lives, like pretty big choices. I know I have, based on insecurity and not having had taken care of myself enough at one point in my life. And Kath and I are going to kind of talk about these are the things that can happen. These are the consequences and results of when we don't take care of ourselves. And again, we're all kind of familiar with the physical things. If we don't do these certain things, exercise, eating well, sleeping enough, these physical ailments come about. We're all fairly familiar with that side of things. But the mind, the soul, the other parts of the wellness wheel that Cathy talks about, we're so afraid to talk about. And it's the mental part, the mental health side is, I feel, in my opinion, the most impactful, most important part because it kind of drives the other parts. Um, so we're going to really dive into you know
Yeah.
some contributing factors to why that is in our country, um, things that some signs that we can see in ourselves and in others that things are out of whack with someone, and hopefully some things that we can kind of get steered in the right direction of doing these self-care things that Kathy and I talk about every single week, because that's really why we wanted to do this podcast is the lack of overall wellness in the country is in a bad way, and Kath and I will both tell you self care is the answer. Now that self care is a blanket term, and it could be a million things and many contributing things that we bring into our lives to make it better, to make it healthier. All fall under the self care umbrella. All help us towards our overall wellness, our mental health. It helps us to build a strong enough sense of self. So if someone has a differing opinion as us, if someone has a different view as us, it doesn't ruin our day. We can go about our day and not feel any kind of sort of way and be so happy and secure in who we are internally with what we're doing with ourselves that none of the outside noise, social media, politicians, whoever the case may be, it doesn't ruin our day. It doesn't make us lose sleep. It doesn't make us have rash and unhealthy decisions. Um, yeah,
I
I'm
thought you were
rambling.
going to say
So,
it makes us have a rash.
it
It might make us have a rash.
could, anxiety can do that. Yeah,
So I wanted to frame this. I got a little framework on this. We're stating the problem. The problem is yuck. We just feel like we're all stuck in yuck. That's my clinical description. That you like it? How does that really feel? What I think we need to describe, just to spend a little time on what that looks like for all of us. How do we get here? What is the root cause of this? And then maybe talk about some strategies that we can individually think about and try to change some of our habits. That's what I'd like to see out of this. And I think what we're talking about tonight is so probably one of the top podcasts of content that we could even talk about, because these are the conversations that should probably be having at dinner tables.
yeah,
I'm not talking about today, happening at dinner tables. But we're unwell. We are unwell, and we can't always pinpoint what's going on. But there's a lot going on. I think that's what we want to say, right?
yeah.
What I don't know, Jay. What are your thoughts about what that kind of feels like? Besides the obvious, this yuck. What is it? How
Well, I think, and a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, we've talked about bits and pieces in other episodes, and um, I know, at least speaking for myself, I went through a very long period of time, 40 years, where
hmm,
I struggled terribly, terribly, and I didn't, although I was unaware specifically of why and how I was struggling, but I was very aware all the time that I was not as happy as I wanted to be. I was always aware that my life was just not what I wanted it to be. Things were just not, like you call it, malaise. It's just unsettled or out of whack or just off. Whatever,
yeah,
however you want to describe it. We all can recognize that. We may not have the insight, the information, or the know how to um, diagnose ourselves or get to the root of it in a moment or in a day or whatever. But we all can pretty much recognize, I'm just not feeling right. I'm just not. It's off. I'm not. I'm unhappy. Whatever it is, we are all aware of that, and that's where you got to start. That's kind of
what are your feel? Identify your thoughts and feelings. Be self aware.
yeah,
What do you
just
got? You feeling down,
yeah,
depressed,
tired, not sleeping well,
fatigue?
not eating right, not eating enough,
Maybe not trust.
irritability.
How about not trusting of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
and things?
irritability, self isolation.
Yep.
Good gosh, just
Poor relationships, broken
yeah,
relationships,
um, yeah. It should, it.
having wounds that people can't see, and
And look,
wounds that people can't see. They're your wounds. It's not for somebody to say you don't have those wounds.
right.
You have them. Grief.
And look, Kathy, I'll be the first one to admit, most of us, most of the time, are not aware of how impactful our stuff is when we're in the middle of it. That I get that. I was that.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you have to diagnose yourself, but you are acutely aware that you're not as happy as you'd like to be. Let's start there.
Yeah.
There are like
I
Kathy
agree.
and I just listed off 20 things that kind of let us know how and why we know that. We know that much. But the question is, and this is the $1 million question, now what? What are we going to do about it?
Or actually, this is a problem. This is how we feel. This is what it feels like. What are some of the reasons? And then what are we going to do about it? I think
Right.
to do the whole problem solving, what do you call it? You always like to say this. Oh my gosh, not spectrum. What am I saying?
The progression of self.
The line, I am, forget it. I'm brain dead today. Forget it. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about how did we get here? How did we get to this
You
point?
talking about getting a neutral?
No, like a continuum. That's the word.
Oh,
Continuum. Golly, day. I need something. Caffeine, food, what a
sleep.
knock me right in the back of the head. I don't know. Um, yeah, but how did we get here? How did we get here? How do we get here in this nonsense? I mean, I can say, because obviously I've had some time to think about this for this podcast, but a big thing, and you and I have talked about this in other podcasts, is technology. Pros and cons, pros and cons. We're here doing this podcast because of technology. That's a great thing. You can buy your ticket to the movies on your phone for Friday night. That's a great thing. You can see, people can see their grandchildren that live in another state immediately. That's a great thing. But technology has created
specifically,
a
specifically
lot.
social media. I think social media is kind of the virus that it's not the only cause, but it is a huge contributing factor nowadays. Well, it exacerbates a lack of self care. It's the anti self care.
Let me bring up a term, and I'm going to tell you, I'm as guilty of this as any human on the face of the earth. Doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. Maybe people have heard that term. I
Hmm.
really took the time to look up doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. Tell me, and if this is all of you, you don't have to raise your hand like me because you're watching us or listening to us. So you can raise your hand in your own house and we're not going to know. It is a dang habit. It is a habit. I have a doom scrolling habit. It refers to the act of obsessively consuming negative news and information online, often through social media platforms and news websites. It involves continually scrolling through distressing content despite feeling anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed. So I'm guilty, and it is a freaking habit. So I'll tell you, this is September, and I will not get politically controversial because we don't do that on our podcast. I'm just going to use the weather. I am the biggest weather doom scroller on the universe. So if you and I get on the podcast, I'm like, wait, was that thunder? So the doom scroller me would usually go to my weather app and look it up because there's a little alert on it, but I didn't. And I'm going to watch any hurricane that's in the ocean. I'm gonna follow it. Why am I following it? Why do I think I need to follow that? And then I'm all worried about the people and Bermuda and Florida and whatever. But and we've said this before on the podcast, our brains are conditioned to work in that negative feedback loop, right? Our brain sucks up the negativity and just our fight or flight is going on there. Like we gotta protect ourselves. Hurricanes coming. The tides are gonna get high. I gotta get my boat out of the water. I don't have a boat to water. Whatever the thing is, we are doom scrolling. Whether it's news, like you just said, an event just happened. Are we constantly checking to see? Maybe it's a safety thing. Now we're worried that maybe that neighborhood, whoever's on the loose, we're worried. Is that going to affect me? Is it going to affect the people I love? I mean, think about, we're on the anniversary of 9/11. We were all terrified for a long time. We were afraid our mail was contaminated with that anthrax. We were afraid to get on planes. We were afraid to do all kinds of things. So doom scrolling is a real habit. It's a real term. And and we all get a lot of information by doing that.
Let me
And
ask
some
you
of
this,
it,
Kathy.
um,
When you're doom scrolling, now I think the way you're describing how you scroll, you're not scrolling places that there are consumer interactions. In other words, you're not like on the Weather Channel. There's nowhere to interact with people. You're
I'm
just
not in the dark web. No, I'm not on the dark web.
so.
Well, and sometimes you have to make decisions. Like if I see people, even on Facebook, if I see people going at it, insulting each other, like I have to remove myself from looking at that. I'm going to be really mad.
But the question is, Kathy, there's the unhealthy loop of being on our phones looking at whatever content, and there are different types of content. Like what you're describing for you, it's not as so much interactive. You're
Right.
just what the weather or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's just you're just getting information. That's one thing.
Or
But
the billionaire lottery ticket. I was seeing who's winning that, who's got it. We still, so I got to go get that ticket.
but my question is for those who are kind of hooked on the interactive parts of the internet, specifically social media, when they're seeing these negative things, there's a difference between, like you just said, you see all this negative feedback, you leave, or you just get out of that site, whatever it is. What is it? I know I have my thoughts, but what do you think it is specifically that causes a person to see that and jump on board and
Sure.
throw more negativity on the fire and get ignorant and nasty? And we see death threats happen on the internet, on
Well,
social media, and things like that. What
I'm going to say,
why do some people read it and not follow suit, and why do some people take it to the nth degree and just get nasty and ignorant?
I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change up a little. I'm going to say what all of these major root causes that I feel, and then we can go in and out of them because they all go in and out of each other. So one is um, this social media, and I don't want to get off that topic. Another is, our families are not. We've had an erosion of family. We've had, faith is not where, and I know we're not pushing religion, but spirituality, let's just say
Right.
that, is decline. Loss of shared collective values as a community. You and I talked earlier, man. You were scared when we were young that so and so was going to tell so and so's mother, and you were going to get it when you get home.
Yeah.
And decline in critical thinking. I really do want to talk about that one, but let's go back to these cell phones. And you know, right there with cell phones is your isolation comes in. There's algorithms. There's misinformation. And is the normal Joe picking fact checking? And I use this example all the time. I put a Facebook post on not too terribly long ago that because I, in my mind, thought Cheers was coming back, and I was like, yeah, Cheers is coming back. And I posted it, and then I'm like, wait a second. And then I went and fact checked it, and no, it wasn't. It's just AI, and people have gotten really good at, taking somebody's face. Somebody could take you and I right now and put different information coming out of our mouths and it would look like it's us. So, how do people know what's real or not, to be fair? And then if these kids or young people or whoever, old people, get on a certain, let's take TikTok, for example, and, if I'm looking at babies that are talking like an adult, then I'm going to start getting more babies talking like adult, which that does happen to me, and I think it's quite funny. Or you get whatever, somebody showing you how to DIY a entry hall. You're going to keep getting that because you stopped, right? But if you are somebody that's down a rabbit hole of dark, controversial things, you're going to keep getting more of that. And that's where some of the danger comes, I think. And our families talking, our families sitting together and having meals anymore, talking about stuff like this. I mean, I know that we've changed as a family with sitting around the table. Now we sit around the counter or stand around the counter and talk, but nothing like we used to. We go to a restaurant, we got our phones out, just like any other bad mannered family, and it's not right, but
So let's talk. You brought up critical thinking. Let's talk about critical thinking because I think you're going to talk about critical thinking in a very clinical and kind of definition based way, and I've kind of come across it in a different kind of just winging it life experience kind of way. But we're saying the same thing. But I'll let you kind of.
So I'm not going to. I will talk about critical thinking and the problems with it. I want to wait, and we can talk about how you attempt to fix that. So we use that. I'm trying to identify some terms here in the podcast right now because a lot of people say terms, and do you really know what it means, or do you really have time to go look and see what it means? And that's part of what we're doing. We're trying to do investigative reporting for people. But critical thinking is a term I think everybody's familiar with, but are you familiar with it? And really what it is, critical thinking and the lack thereof, and there globally is a decline in critical thinking going on. So if you want to think of it this way, it's real deep thinking and reflection, right? It's analyzing something. It's getting information on something, and it's you might take arguments, you may take people's biases, you may look at your own biases, and you're making an informed decisions based on information, based on really thinking about it. It's not impulsivity. Critical thinking takes time. It takes practice. It takes thought. It takes stepping back. And I believe some of the reasons why critical thinking is on the decline, a lot of it I feel is technology focused. So if we have this phone that's I can find something in a second that I want to know. I can put something in AI and it lists me out all the steps I need to do something to make chocolate chip cookies. Tell me how to do it. Boop, there it is. What do I need to get? So we're thinking less because something is giving us information more. We're doing the doom scrolling. Our attention spans as a society have gone right down the hopper. If I do a staff training here at Channel Marker, I can hardly keep people half a day. I used to have all day trainings. We've tried to figure out how to make information in smaller amounts of time. Our people are just nodding off. And I think that we've gotten into a post pandemic rut. We're just in survival mode still since then. Maybe we were way before the pandemic, but it's like life before the pandemic, life after it. And people are just not taking those deeper dives into what's going on before they react or make decisions. That's what I feel.
So it's funny you're giving your definition of critical thinking, what critical thinking is, and in that in that thing that I have kind of visually come up with in my mind, that what I call the progression of self. When we have done the work enough on ourselves that we have a strong sense of self, we are then able to critically think. We are then able to filter through all the information that we get and throw away the stuff that we think is not worthy or healthy. Hold on to the stuff that is. Um, we're just able to we're not impacted by external influences, social media, friends and family. Um, sure, your friends and family can be, people that you go to for opinions and for whatever, but really, you know, it's about who am I? Who are we as an individual? Are we strong enough that we, because what our thoughts and beliefs are may not necessarily line up with our family and friends. That doesn't mean that they're bad people and that they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not every family member agrees with every family member, and every friend agrees with you your group of friends don't all live their lives the same way.
Yeah.
Um, but if you have a strong enough sense of self, you're now able to critically think. You said it all takes time; it's a process. And for me, the strong sense of self that allows us to critically think was a result of working on ourselves. Is a result of self care, wellness, doing the steps that get us to that point. And what you said about social media and your phone and the internet being such a distraction, that's the biggest distraction by far. But if you're working on yourself enough and you're working on yourself with intention, it doesn't matter how big the distraction is. There are a lot of people. It's probably the minority, but there are a lot of people that pay no mind to social media, don't have social media accounts. It never even occurs to them.
Probably
They
my
literally don't give two turds about what's going on in social media because they're so secure in who they are. They've decided who they are, and it's firm, and it's there, and it's not blown over by the wind. It's not altered by what someone said on the social media. It's not. I want to get to that point. Um,
I know.
it's got to be. And look, I probably am. I am probably one of the least interactive people on. So I don't. I very almost never comment. I post a lot, but it's all
Yeah.
podcast stuff always. But I don't. Very seldom do I interact. I don't read. I don't read my feed very seldom. I post and I leave it be, and I'll go back and look at my posts and see who's commented on my post about the podcast. But I don't scroll down my feed. I don't look at things. I just don't. Um,
Well, I think we got to remember too. Our brain is an organ. I think we forget that, and we got to use it. You got to use it. Or you're gonna lose it. Your brain, it's just sitting there on top of your shoulders. You don't like activate it.
right.
It's
But
just collecting stuff.
you can use the internet in a good way. I do a lot of like
And I'm not anti technology.
yeah, nor am I, because it has served a good purpose in some ways. It's not 100% bad by any means, but it has had, especially on that what's that Gen Y, Gen Z, that whatever that the early teens, young adults, late teens, young adults into their 30s, that kind of group that has pretty much only known you know they didn't know a world where interaction was other than through
You know
social
what, Jay?
media.
I was just thinking about as we're talking too is that the world has always been complicated. Like, I love
Yes,
this term VUCA: vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's another word I can't say today. The world has always had that. It's always been complex. It's always been unpredictable. It always has been hard to interpret.
and
Um,
in some ways, Kathy, it was worse back then. In some ways,
so, what has changed? Well, we've been talking about what is changing within us, and how do we, get off center or get to neutral to make our lives better. And I think we can't forget to talk about another term that I like to talk about is emotional intelligence, and that might not be as familiar to people as critical thinking, but and you can look up emotional intelligence, and there will be sometimes there's 5 points, sometimes there's seven, whatever. But basically, what that is as an awareness of your emotion and understanding of emotions of people around you. So we've already kind of talked about this, our own self awareness of how, what our thoughts and feelings and motivations are, um, empathy for other folks, having healthy relationships. What does that look like? How to self regulate ourselves, our self care, and making good decisions. So, emotional intelligence. And I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but I think we got to be aware of the things that are going on or not going on so that then we can move toward fixing.
I think if we could kind of describe the difference from you know our generation when we were you know teenagers versus now, it would be and kind of describe the differences. It was more about self back then in every way, and more now about outside of self. We're not only are we um, influenced by these outside things because there are more of them, but we folks are dependent on the outside of self. In other words, they're looking for
Yeah.
fulfillment, fulfillment, and um, happiness. They're looking for any kind of affirmation. That's the only place they think they can find it is out. We had to talk face to face back then,
Did you
or
had
we
to,
talked, or we talked on the phone on the landline. There
and
was
we had a break if there was a problem at school. You went home and you watched the Flintstones and Laverne and
Yep.
Shirley all day.
You entertained yourself a lot of the times. Again, going self.
That problem would be, and there was patience. Like that problem was not immediately solved. It was gonna have to be dealt with tomorrow.
There was no other options. Like we had to
Yeah.
entertain ourselves, educate ourselves. We had to interact face to face, self to self. There was no, this whole doing it through text or through social media. It's not
Right.
it's not self to self. It's outer to outer. There's no
Well,
you can't read body language. You can't read facial expressions. You lose context. It's
yeah.
just and they don't and then don't get me wrong. I text as much as a lot of people.
Sure, me too.
Um,
And I'm grateful for it. But
but I think texting is different from social media. There's because you're texting one person versus spreading it out there to everybody.
in our generation and above, we're used to talking to people.
Yes.
That's how we've been conditioned to grow.
Well, I wasn't, but yes, that's a different story.
The younger ones, not as much. So
And they don't really. It seems not. And look, I'm not. It's not a blanket statement. It's not. I'm not. It's
right.
not. I'm not saying it's every person of the younger generation, but it doesn't seem like. And it's partly because they've not known any different. They're not gonna build a skill that they don't think they need.
Right. That you don't know what you don't know kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Um,
go ahead.
so as I'm extrapolating this out, I'm like,
Big word.
is the marriage failure rate going to increase because we now are having a generation of people that are getting married that have not had the time sitting in front of each other to establish that part of
Don't I am not. I'm going to refrain from that comment right now
I
because
know you've got four boys and one just brand new
I
married,
have
so
lots of opinions about that, and I think I agree with you. I'll say that I would imagine that we're going to see that because people aren't fleshing those things out. I agree, but anyway, I would like to talk about some other things that we can do to help. But before that, I wouldn't mind talking about how to improve critical thinking first. Would that be okay? And then we can
self care.
circle back with with more of the self care stuff,
Well,
particular
I'm
stuff.
not saying that's part of the answer to what you're going to. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is more specifically to the critical thinking problem. So, how do we improve critical thinking skills? If any of us feel like we're in that rabbit hole of poor rabbits, I wonder how they got to be such a negative. Their hole got to be so negative, but it did. I don't know what's in that rabbit hole, but I know I twist my ankle in one about once a week.
You know where that term comes from?
No, I guess I
It
don't.
comes from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh,
When she gets sucked down and she goes on an adventure. It's a different world down there. So
I'm
it
a
came
girl and
from
I should know that. But anyway, okay,
yeah.
so
That's where
there's
it
the
comes
rabbit
from.
hole. It's not literally the rabbit hole; it's the Alice rabbit hole. Thank
Yes.
you for clearing that up for me.
For you younger versions, look up Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, and I should know that. But anyway, so how to improve critical thinking skills? Number one, avoid the urgency trap. Whew, I think we're all in that, right? Don't be at such a rush to make a decision. Don't be under so much pressure. And that's an example we gave of our generation where you had the problem and you might not have been able to fix that till the next day at school. Engage in reflective thinking. Just spend some time with yourself before you start yapping, right? Spend some time, think about what's going on. Somebody told me today that Chick-fil-A teaches the 24-hour rule, like hold on to something, and if it's still eating at you 24 hours later, then go at it. I probably didn't say it the way Chick-fil-A says it. So sorry, Chick-fil-A. Practice listening and effective communication because it is hard to listen because we're always thinking about what we want to say next, but we kind of know that. Solve problems systematically. Break down big, the sky is falling, the big universe problems into much smaller components that you can brainstorm, evaluate. You can handle smaller bites. This is a huge one. Engage in a lifetime learning. Like, don't ever stop learning. Learn every day. Be curious.
Learn yourself.
Curious. Because if we're not being curious, we're not open to anybody else's thoughts but our own, right? Uh, This is a good one. Engage in critical thinking exercises. It's like, well, what is critical thinking exercises? Solving puzzles, right? Putting puzzles together, solving puzzles, riddles, logical problems. Engage in a debate with somebody, a healthy debate, right? Look at, I don't know how many people want to look at a case study, but that was one of the examples they had. Um, yeah, so try to sharpen your skills with critical thinking. And then the last one is practice self compassion, right? Because it's a pretty crazy world out there and you got to be kind to yourself. So that was some easy tips on how to change your critical thinking
And
or
I
how
would
to
add,
enhance.
yeah, I would kind of add a big blanket one to that, Kathy, like I talked about a little while ago. Um, we should always be self-reflecting. We should always be learning who we are. We should always be learning and growing and strengthening who we are and um, working on ourselves. Because if you're building, you're filling in the puzzle pieces of yourself. We're always growing and building, no matter how long we are on this earth. We should be constantly learning and growing. So we're never a finished product. But if you're doing that, you get to a point where you're just like, part of it's just being fed up, just tired of being tired. You're just like, I don't really care what other people think. I don't doesn't I'm not going to lose sleep if someone has a differing view than I do.
Right.
My life is not negatively impacted by someone on social media who likes a different band than I do or a different sporting team than I do. Um, I know who I am, and that's that. And you kind of have built-in critical thinking. You kind of live a critically thinking life. Um,
Yeah.
the self-care, I'm telling you, you know, it, you know, Kath and
So,
I kind of we always knew how important self-care was, or that's why we started the podcast. But even as we have had folks on, and different guests have talked about different ways to go about self-care and different aspects of self-care, and as Kathy and I have tackled topics that we're not always familiar to us with self-care, we've learned. And
oh,
you
yes.
know to me,
Practice it. We
like
practice.
insecurity is that's really, if you really, to me, this is just my opinion, if you really break down to its very core what we're talking about, insecurity is what causes us to make those rash and unhealthy decisions, whether they're extreme, like we've had happen here lately in our country, or whether they're getting into relationships for the wrong reasons, like I did, or whether they're mouthing off on social media, or whether they're, sporting fans giving their kicker on their football team death threats because their team didn't win.
That's horrible. Well, and people can hide
That
behind.
all comes down to insecurity. And we're insecure because we haven't worked on ourselves enough to have a strong enough sense of self to not be bothered by this outside crap. And it's just
Noise.
that. It's crap. Um, I get frustrated by this generation of people, but I'm so sorry for them in another way, because we didn't have all those, you know, all the stuff. We had crap, but it was much smaller. It was not as broad. It was all local. It was within our school or within our town, and it didn't really go much further than that.
And you
You
didn't have
could
the
be
fear
getting
of
crap
missing
for
out.
people.
You couldn't see where people are all the time.
Yeah,
You didn't know where people were. You didn't have no way of finding out where people were unless they told you.
but
Well,
it's just part of me, Kathy, and you and I have talked about this. We talked about it before we came on tonight. I get so part of me is like, you know, part of me remembers when I didn't know what I didn't know. So there's that part of me that's like, okay, Jay, what can Jay do to help people? that are in that same situation that Jay used to be in a while back. So then there's that. But there's part of me that gets, honestly, I'm going to be very honest, that gets frustrated because I look at it as I'm nobody special. I figured it out. And look, I look at it as if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. And I get everybody's road's different, everybody's circumstances are different. But again, we'll go way back to the beginning of what this podcast episode started about. And that was we all know that when things are off, we may not know why, we may not know the how or the specifics, we may not know the root of it, but we know we're not happy as we'd like to be. We know when
Right.
we just feel off. We know that. We all know that all the time. So my question is to everybody watching, listening, now what?
Now what?
When
What's
when
your
do
action? What's your action? What action are you going to take?
when does that self care start kicking in? When and it's like an addict having to hit rock bottom. You have to get so fed up with being fed up with being unhappy that you say, I'm done with this. I need to take a step in the right direction. And I'm telling you, self care is going to be at the core of your answer. What you do specifically for self care might be different than me or Cathy than me or Cathy may do, but I'm telling you, taking care of yourself. I like to use those terms interchangeably. Self care because that's kind of the new age term that Cathy and I use, but it's really taking care of yourself. Is going to be front and center with you getting out of the
It's
place you don't want to be in
wellness.
anymore.
It's
Yes,
proactive, not reactive. It's
yes,
proactive wellness. And I'll give you a recipe right now. If you're and I will need to follow my own advice because I still get down. Alice takes me down the rabbit hole. So here's what I would say: make a plan, make some action. Right? Figure out what the heck is going on. What am I feeling? What's going on? And
yeah. First of all, I'll stop you there. Let me interrupt real quick.
yeah, it's
First
fine.
of all, write down all the things that are of why you feel like it's not going your way. Write that down first, because that way you'll know, you'll see it written
What's
down.
bothering you?
I don't want to be there anymore. You can look on the paper and say, that's where I want to get away from, and you can literally watch the page turn and write down progression from that. Go ahead.
So
I'm sorry.
no, you can interrupt anytime. So what's going on? Yeah, I agree with you. Writing down what's going on with me right now. I'm hungry. I'm mad at so and so. My dog peed on the floor. Whatever your stuff
Yeah,
is.
can't sleep. Yeah,
What can you control? And then mark it out. If you can't control it, you might as well take the Sharpie and mark on through it and get on with it. It's just you can't. What? Do not spend. And I do. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. But try not to spend too much of your energy because you only have so much every day on things you can't control.
yep, yep.
And you gotta figure stuff out. Is this correct information or is it misinformation? You gotta fact check stuff. Is so and so really mad at me? Is the hurricane really coming? Is Cheers really going to have a new show? I mean, figure out. And I joke too, but figure out what is correct. And you've got to have real conversations. Jay and I have this planned conversation every Tuesday, and it's good for us because we can talk about issues, we can reflect and think. So find your Jay for Tuesday nights and have your discussion. Make your own
Oh,
discussion. You don't have to
there aren't too many of
own
those
it.
out there. Thank God.
Um, and then I would say this: yes, all the self care. Figure out what all your self care is, but here's some real things you can pick up and do if you're feeling like this. Maybe limit if you know that the news is really setting you off. Try just say, "Hey, I'm not going to pick up this phone every time I think about it and look at whatever news app you like to look at. I'm going to do it twice a day." Even start going back like that. Or if you're a Snapchatter, well, I might not even use that. The kids would not even agree with me on that. They will
Or
never not stop picking
do
up
it like the old
Snapchat.
school news cycle was. You had the news at noon, and you had the
6
news at
p.m.
six and 11,
Yes,
and noon, 6 and 11. Those were your three
that's so
times. That was
true.
it.
So but you got to do that, and then be aware of your algorithms. Like if you're a TikToker and I can be a TikToker too, but I have probably funny middle school boy humor stuff that comes up on me that I'm giggling about. Like when you said two turds, that made me laugh, and that's the kind of stuff that probably is coming up on my TikTok. But anyway, if you're down a bad path, then go focus on the babies because then you're going to
Yep.
get more babies.
Type in some, yeah, type in the, yeah, yep.
At the
Because
babies,
it remembers what you've
change
been
your
watching and it
algorithm.
keeps feeding you that. Yep.
Put in classical music. I don't care what you do, but whatever. Maybe you need to turn off some of your notifications. Like I've noticed that I'll get some stupid stuff come up on my Apple Watch. Like, what the heck? Why do I got a notification that this tea company? Well, I shouldn't say tea is important. I should use a tea company,
Like you say,
or
I
that
know exactly why that comes up on your notification.
that BJ's has a sale or whatever. Maybe I need to go into my phone and stop the notifications on the BJ's app or whatever. Like, I don't need to be like, um, maybe put the phone down and just let it be and go outside and do something.
Go
And
take
then,
a walk and just leave your phone at the house or something. Yeah.
but then we get into trouble because then we're tracking our steps, we're tracking our vital signs. So it's this love hate with the phone, right? We know that the mindfulness stuff. Get back to routines. I think we forget how much better do we feel sometimes. We come back from vacation and we're mad, but once we start getting to the routines, we do feel better. Um, Jay, you've said this a million times. Do what you like. That's self care. Identify what you like. If you can't identify what will make you feel better, identify what you like because you know what you like. Is there a hobby? Is there a TV show? Is there reading, music, your pet, whatever your thing is? Do what you like because that is going to change your mindset. You can get in the car and a little Dreamweaver comes on and it may change your negative mindset or make me go buy carpet from Jay. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say. Make a plan for yourself. Identify what's going on and what do I need to do less of, and what can I can't control.
And real quick, I'll kind of leave that on this note. Prioritize yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and and deprioritize those things outside of yourself that don't really matter. Sure, yes, your job, your family, those things matter. That's different. But these other things that are outside of you, just throw them down the list and bring yourself higher on the list. Um, you know, take care of you. You can't give from an empty cup. All the sayings we've been saying for 80 episodes now. It.
I will say this since I've been doing the podcast. I still have crap days. I mean, nobody ever promised us this life was going to be easy, and I'm not thinking it ever is going to be. And there's going to be days where I just can't. I don't want to people, but I have really felt a shift in myself where something that I thought was the end of the world, it still feels like the end of the world, but it's not affecting me the way it did. It's not sending me down the rabbit holes. Maybe I'm just peeking in the rabbit hole. I'm hanging in the rabbit hole, but I can get myself out of it much
Yeah.
quicker. So I think practice is the
Oh
key.
yeah, it has to be consistent and it has to be intentional. Um,
You have to be consistently a priority for yourself.
yes, because what happens is if you do it it's like going to the gym. I'll take a very specific part of self care. If you go to the gym consistently enough, the longer you're consistent, then there are fewer and fewer days where you have to talk yourself into going. It becomes who you are instead of what you do, and you have to do it with intention. You have to realize when you're driving to the gym, walking to the gym, all right, this matters because of X, Y, and Z. You have to know and be familiar with why you're doing those things. You can't just go through the motions. I can go to the gym and teach anybody how to do the exercises, but if they're just in there kind of half-assing it, they're not going to get the results that they should get. So consistency and intention. Do it consistently and do it because realize why you're doing it and hold on to that thought.
And don't you think if you work on you and you're more at neutral or better, then you're going to show up for other people and you're going to have better
Yeah,
relationships.
like we've said before, Kathy, the better we are, the better teammate we are. The better we are at all these things, all these hats that we wear at different times of a day in our lives. Um, it sounds kind of very harsh and blunt to say, but if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're shortchanging everybody in our lives. Everybody we come across, whether it's family, coworkers,
Well,
the person at the grocery store, whatever it is, we're shortchanging whatever
I'll
people
give
we're
you.
interacting with.
I'll give you an example of that. Apparently, I need to work on fixing my face because today's only Tuesday. But anyway, since Sunday, I've had 3 people say to me, and one of them knows me not well, but knows me pretty good, a coworker. Another was a doctor that I see once a year, and another is someone that I've probably only met 3 times, but I went to a meeting with her. All 3 of those people this week said to me, "What's wrong? Something's wrong with you. You're off." And I'm like, "Dangers! Like, what do I?" And I do have a little bit of something going on right now, but I didn't even say a word, and people are just reading me. So what am I doing to not show up like I usually do?
Yeah,
And either people are just really good, or I'm really obvious. I don't know. But what do
yeah,
I need to do to fix it?
yeah. Yeah, you were not intending to, but you were shortchanging that meeting or
Yeah.
whatever those social interactions were. It doesn't make you a bad person. Just
Or
that that
Felix saying to the doctor when she said, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Shouldn't I be saying that to you? What is wrong with
that's
me?"
that's one of the many things that are the consequences and results of us not taking care of ourselves. It propagates everywhere we go and everybody we have contact with.
Yeah,
It,
they
it
see
just
it. They
does. And
feel it.
we none of us want to do that for the people that we care about in our lives. Um, we don't intend that, but that's just the unfortunate consequence of not taking care of ourselves. We make harsh, rash, and unhealthy, sometimes dangerous decisions. Again, it's a very
Yeah.
simplistic way to talk about the events of what that's happened here in the past week or two. But that's really kind of what it breaks down to. Um, you're not taking care of yourself. You're now influenced by these outer things that we talked about this whole episode. Yeah, you're not making good, sound decisions in every way when you're a lesser version of yourself. And
Yeah.
the best way to do that is work on yourself, self care, do all the things,
Find the
find
things
the
you
things
like.
you enjoy. Yeah, hit those things and do them as often as you can, and realize it and do. I mean, we could, yes, all the
Find your
things.
people too. Find your support. Find your
Yep,
people.
yep.
Find the
Um,
people that make you laugh.
so yeah, I mean, look, it's not an easy fix, or it's the whole social media external influence makes it more difficult because you're battling this gigantic entity, this network of just negative crap. Um,
Yeah,
but
you're right. And you got to be pretty healthy to be able to take
that,
yourself out of
yep,
it.
you got to have a strong sense of self to be able to just like let it brush off your back. But you should want that whether social media exists or not. That should be a goal no matter what.
Hmm.
So let's switch gears real quick here, Kathy,
That's a heavy, heavy topics.
and let's do
Trivia time
trivia time. And I'll let you, as usual, I'll let you ask first.
because you're such a gentleman. All right, ready?
Yep,
Category is movies.
yep.
After spotting Marty McFly in his underwear, you already know the answer, don't you?
I don't know, but it's just that sentence sounds funny.
We've gone from trouble in the world to Marty McFly in his underwear. After spotting Marty McFly in his underwear, what does Marty's younger mother think his name is? Now remember, Back to the Future. You're going back in time.
Yeah.
So Marty's in his underwear and he's in his home.
Calvin
Younger
Klein.
version of his. Yeah. Yeah, she thought he was Calvin Klein because his underwear are Calvin Klein. Yeah.
I kept thinking of, remember the part where she says, "Oh, he's a dream."
Yeah, and
She's
he's like,
talking about her son that doesn't know it. That was kind of what I was first thinking of, but as you kind of you explained the question more, I figured it out.
yeah,
I haven't seen that movie in forever.
such a family favorite in our house. Marty
All
McFly.
right, so
And Marty Castle thinks that that makes his name much cooler because of Marty McFly. Okay? Just telling you that. That's a little
so
trivia.
I'm going to read you the top 10 grossing movies
Uh oh.
of
You like your lists.
of a specific year, and I want you to tell me
What year?
what year these were the top 10 highest grossing movies.
I'm writing down. I got my pen out.
The number one grossing movie of this year was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
Number two was On Golden Pond. Number three was Superman.
Do I get the whole list? Do I get all 10?
Yeah, Superman 2. Number four is Arthur. Five is Cannonball Run.
Mm.
Six is Chariots of Fire.
Mm.
Seven is Time Bandits. Eight is Clash of the Titans. Nine is Reds. And 10 is The Fox and the Hound. And that's the only one of these 10 that I did not recognize whatsoever.
Oh,
What year were these the top 10 grossing movies?
see, I feel like you're tricking me because I feel like you're tricking me. I'm going to say 1981.
You're right.
I'm right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I am a genius. I'm an incredible genius. Wow.
See,
Wow.
I was trying to pick a year. I'm like,
You tried to
okay.
fool me, didn't you? You tried to fool me.
No,
I
I didn't
think
try to fool you. I ask for my own personal reasons. Like the year I pick is not doesn't have anything to do with you. I just like I'm like okay, the year we entered high school was 1981 because it was the fall of 1981 when we entered high school. So
right.
I'm thinking, okay, that's how I go about it. I don't
There's
say,
only so many underwear that Marty McFly could be named.
well,
He could
yeah.
be wait, he could be fruit
That
of
my
the loom.
first thing was Fruit of the Loom, but I'm like, no, she didn't.
What else? What else could he have been? Haynes.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of years to figure out there. I think I'm a girl genius. Thank you.
That was good. I don't necessarily try to trick you at all.
That scared me.
I
It
just kind of
scared me.
like I just kind of like pick things that are like cool and interesting for like our time growing up as high school kids.
I know, and I'm trying to think. Okay, where, where? I'm like, we were younger.
See, I think you would be more likely to get answers correct from that era than if I were to pick something from like 2005. You would probably, and I'm the same way. I'd be like, I would have no idea.
100%
But
right.
but if you go back further, I would be more likely to get the answer
Look,
correct from
you're
that era.
messing with my girl genius status here.
No, that was,
Yeah, I feel good now. I feel
me
empowered.
personally, I'm not very good at like if someone says, unless it's very recent. If someone were to say, "What year did such and such a movie come out?" I don't think I would be very good at that at all, unless it's been
Right.
very very recent.
I like this one that you're doing because then it makes me think about the different. Like if you said what year was Arthur, I don't know what I would have said.
Right.
I might have even said late 70s. I don't know, but
I could probably, for most movies, get within a couple years,
yeah,
but I wouldn't necessarily get it exact.
right.
Um,
Especially like you said, newer ones. I'm
yeah, yeah. That era, I would be more likely to get it
man,
correct.
but I feel good about myself now. Thank you very much.
So speaking of watching things, you've been watching some stuff apparently.
Did I tell you that? I did tell you that. Did I
You
tell
just texted me that, but you didn't tell me what it was.
All right. Well, before we get into the obvious one that you and I both love, Only Murders.
Well, that might not be so much for me anymore. But anyway, go ahead.
Stop it.
Go ahead. I'll let you.
Wait a sec. All right, we're coming back to that.
Okay.
This might be friendship ending. All right. I watched half of that daggone Charlie Sheen documentary. Have you seen that yet?
I have watched it.
I haven't
That
watched the
was one.
second, but I'm like, it is stressing me out. I'm like, oh my
It's
god.
it's funny. I watched both parts back to back, and it wasn't really
Got me.
anything that surprised me. There wasn't any kind of new
It
information that
exhausted me. Exhausted me. I'm like,
I
dude.
didn't realize that him and Nicolas Cage were such a tight duo back in the
And
day,
I didn't realize that him and that Nicolas Cage was a bad boy.
and that him and Sean Penn were good friends. I didn't realize that either.
Oh, I didn't either, but Sean Penn is all of what you think he is. Sean Penn was, and forever is Jeff Spicoli.
Yeah,
And his
dude.
brain is fried. But and I didn't realize they changed their names. Like
I did. I knew that. Yeah,
I guess at some point I did know that Emilio Estevez was his brother, but
yeah.
I never
I did.
thought about why.
I didn't realize there was a third brother. I did not know that.
I know, but I didn't realize they changed their names like that. But good lord, I'm telling you, that documentary hurts my head. It exhausts me, and I still got another hour and a half to watch. So if
I
not,
will say I did like how open and honest he was. And granted, he's been sober, at least he says, for 8 years now. So there's probably a lot of clarity and a lot of he's done the work where it's just like, you know,
mm.
and it's most of it's public knowledge, arrest records, and all that kind of stuff are
But it's like, and you don't think something like I'm watching it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, Sean Penn, oh my gosh, Nicolas Cage, Heidi Fleiss. I'm like, holy moly, there's all these things coming out of the woodwork. You haven't thought about it for a while.
But his story, Kathy, maybe not to this degree, but his story is probably not unlike a lot of Hollywood people
No,
from
he's just
especially
crazy enough to
back
say it.
back then. Yeah, he just kind of took it to another level. Flying a plane, getting on a freaking airplane and flying an actual commercial plane.
Or that Nicolas Cage getting on the speaker and saying stuff on that plane. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my god,
imagine how that would go down these days.
no, they're like,
There would have been a marshal on the plane. He would have got arrested on the plane.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so
I have
only
to tell you that.
murders.
Remind me to tell you the funny story at some point about me and the air marshal on a plane. I have a funny story. Um,
Only murders.
don't hurt my feelings about this. You got to give it time.
I've watched. It's been over. This is the fifth season, Kathy. How much more?
I
I,
mean,
I
wait,
like. Hold on. I liked the first episode. I did not at all like the second episode, where all it was the flashback of the doorman's history as a kid, growing up to become.
we don't know what they're
Like,
building up to, Jay. It's
it
not.
didn't. It didn't tell me anything. It was like I'm like I don't need to know this. Granted, the mob thing and the people with the
It's
mob and all that. Maybe it's. I'm like, you know. So I
oh
haven't watched the third episode yet. I
well.
stopped after the second one, and
You're not going to watch anymore.
I will, but
You better.
I'm not. It was like the second one just kind of soured me a little bit. I'm just it of all the episodes of all of this show, it was the worst of all of them so far, and it's not even close. It was even worse than the first couple when I didn't know what the show was about. To me,
Your girl, what would your girl, Selena Gomez, say? She would say, Jay, stop it.
I mean, maybe it picks up.
It'll pick up.
And
It'll pick
I'm
up.
still going to watch it, but I'm just there were 3 episodes released. I have not watched episode 3. I don't even think I finished episode 2.
Oh,
Um, but
you better.
I'll continue to watch it, and
You better.
I'll watch it.
That's
I'm
our
just saying,
pact. We have a pact. We have to finish
I just,
watching this series.
I was just disappointed, Kathy. That
All
I
right.
can't. I didn't even prior to that. I didn't like every episode equally along the way. There were some that were
All right, you
better and
need to
worse
be
than others.
faithful. That's all I'm saying. Faithful. We're in this together.
I mean, I'm faithful to my time, and I'm faithful to what entertains me. And if it doesn't entertain me, I'm not gonna. That makes no sense to not watch it anymore.
We've got a pact.
I mean, it was one
All together.
episode, so I'll continue to watch it.
We're finishing that, and we're finishing Ted Lasso together.
I don't see Ted Lasso like disappointing me at all. I just don't. Um,
You
yeah,
better watch that too.
yeah, I'll watch. I mean, I'll finish watching this. It's just that one episode of all the however
I'll
many
give you
episodes they've
one.
had,
Give you
I
one.
did not like.
I'll give you
So
one.
one out of how many episodes
All
is there?
right.
Let's see, 50 some episodes so far, and I've not liked one out of 50 some.
I am mad at myself because we're still trying to finish Cobra Kai and we're almost done. And we watched one the other night with Dylan and I stinking fell asleep. So I don't know if I should admit it to them or not, or just secretly watch it at another time when they're not around or on my phone. And then, because dang, I didn't mean to fall asleep. And it's like, that is stigmatized in my house.
So I'm continuing to go backwards in time and
Oh, the one show.
watching Love Is Blind. I'm now going back to
I think anybody has ever done that, gone back in time,
I
watched it.
did that with Game of Thrones. I've done that with a few shows because I was so late in finding them that I'm like, oh, I like this, so I went back and watched. Now maybe everybody else goes back to episode one and
One.
catches up. I
Yeah.
go, I go, I go
In
like
reverse order.
I go in yeah. I'm probably different in that way, but
Yeah.
man, there's like the first portion of that show. I love that. I like that whole getting to know each other without seeing each other. Man, they talk about some deep stuff because they're
Oh,
so
that's right. You
unafraid.
said that.
They're so unafraid because they can't be rejected in any way. They don't know who it is. They don't see their face. There's no facial expressions. There's no way for that other person to reject them in any way. So they're like just throwing all the information out there. I'm like, man, this is how people should date in the real world. They should get to know each other like this in the real world all the time. Now, there after that, it gets very unrealistic and it gets a little frustrating. But then there are also some cool things along the way. But if I could just watch that first section when they're in the pods, I would just watch that and could watch a show just about that part.
I should watch some clips of that.
So this Friday, I'm going back to the movies for the first time in 3 weeks.
That's a long time for you. Did you tell the movie people that you're okay? Because they're probably really worried. Did they send you a get well card or anything?
They probably did wonder.
I'm
I
just saying,
got my
they
ticket
probably
today.
did. I'm surprised they didn't do a well check with the police.
I'm going to see a movie called The Long Walk. I saw previews of it a while back, and it looked kind of pretty decent. So I'm gonna try that out. Um, yeah, and then the final episode of the series finale of The Summer I Turned Pretty is tomorrow night. Is streaming tomorrow night. Um, that's kind of been the big deal streaming show for everybody.
Oh,
But it's coming to an end after only 3 seasons.
how about
So
celebrity gossip? Did you heard that Kelsey Ballerini and Chase Stokes
yeah, I heard that.
split to bone?
That was a little surprising.
That's celebrity gossip there.
Yeah, that's in the news. Um,
I did
oh
I did fact check that.
yeah, yeah. Well, they actually their people released that. Like their people actually released that. And in sad news, Robert Redford passed away.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
He
Yeah.
was 89. He's one of those iconic.
Iconic heartthrobs.
I remember him as the Natural. Like that's the one that talking about really good baseball movies like The Natural. Like I see him in that movie. Butch was it him and Paul Newman were Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, I think.
Were they?
Yeah. He just done so many real. He was in the Avengers.
Was he?
Yep.
Who was he?
He was the president or somebody like that. He was somebody pretty high up.
Really? I need to go back and Google that because
Yep.
I don't remember.
Yep.
Interesting.
And then he was a director and a producer. He kind of did like Clint Eastwood did.
Hmm.
He kind of went from acting into directing and producing. But yeah.
There we go.
All right, guys. We appreciate you tuning in to Easter Short Talk. We hope you got a little bit of information and that was useful and enjoyed this episode. And we will catch you next time on Easter Short Talk. Take care, guys.
Bye.